you'll stay in quarantine for 5 days. During which point in time, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to clothe you, I'm going to provide you security, and I'm going to provide you shelter. See, I've just saved her children's lives. At which point in time, she becomes my staunchest supporter. You will never be able to convince her that I have any ulterior motive other than the safety and welfare of her family. Because for no reason, I put into action taking care of her family. At which point in time, Dorn here's screwed. Right? Because when I come to Dorn 6 months later and say, hey, I need to go out with this external security patrol, and you might not come back. You might die. Here's your rifle. He's going to go. Because if he doesn't, she's going to be paranoid. I'm about to kick her kids back out into that chaos that I just saved them from. And she'll pick up the rifle and go if he won't. So as soon as I take care of her family, she becomes my biggest supporter. Poor Dorn here. He does everything I want him to do at that point. It's how we take something evil and we turn it into something good. But see, most preppers would turn them away. I don't have enough to share. When it's gone, it's gone. I can't get more. I have to do what I have to do so that I survive. And they turn their back on humanity, on their fellow man. Have a seat. Thank you very much for volunteering. Y'all win a prize too. Excuse me. Guys, I cannot stress enough to you the importance of understanding that you do not have the intestinal fortitude at the worst time in the recorded history of mankind. You do not have the intestinal fortitude to turn away your friends, your co-workers, your family, your neighbors. If you do have the intestinal fortitude to turn them away and you are married, your wife needs to divorce you today because you are not fit to be a man. Period. Every year, my wife and I find some teenagers that are in group homes, have no parents, and we buy them what they need for school. And at Thanksgiving, we send them a Thanksgiving dinner. And at Christmas, we buy them presents. It makes us feel good. It's the right thing to do. Where are my combat veterans? Talk to these guys. They'll tell you the physical, the mental, the emotional repercussions of you taking another human's life. They'll tell you how that sticks with you. It's the day you die. They'll tell you how you get up in the morning and go and get your wife a cup of coffee. And that person standing there and hands you the creamer. And you're going to tell me that with no training whatsoever, no force on force, no mental and emotional training, you're going to look at a stranger who's come to you in need and you're going to shoot him and still be able to function and take care of your family. If you think you're capable of that, raise your hand and I'll look you dead in the eye and call you a fool. Because I know you can't. The reason why I'm telling you this today, can you name for me the first woman ever executed by the federal government? I'll give you a hint. She was deprived of the right of attorney. She had a military tribunal. Her son's last name was Booth, but not hers. What was her name? Okay. Can you name for me one person executed in the state of Kentucky in the last 20 years for murdering more than 13 people? Okay. Do you live in Indianapolis here? Anybody live in Indianapolis? Raise your hand. Can you name for me one person that was arrested yesterday for holding up a gas station? The point is, guys, that history does not remember the criminals. History doesn't care about the criminals. because they did not make a positive impact on society. In times of extreme turmoil and chaos, ordinary men and women step forth and perform extraordinary deeds. When I was 12 years old making a volcano for science class, my dad looked and he said, "Well, that's crap. You're not turning that in." I'm like, "Dad, it's 10:30 at night. I got to have it there tomorrow morning. I'm turning it in." He said, "No, you're not." And for an hour, he and I worked on it. And when we were done, you pushed the button, and the thing separated, and it dropped the baking powder into the vinegar, and it overflowed, and it wiped out the army men and the little house. It was awesome. It was extraordinary. And my dad said to me, he said, "Son, the only difference between ordinary and extraordinary is a little something extra." The problem that we face is that the bulk of preppers in our country have bought into the mindless fear-mongering crap, where they're going to try to turn their backs on humanity. Okay? And if that's who we think is going to survive, what kind of world are they going to build? It's not going to be extraordinary. What kind of society are they going to raise up out of the ashes for our children and our grandchildren? My plan is not to be alive at the end of day 1. It's not to be alive at the end of day 30. It's not to be alive on the 5th year anniversary of a society-ending event, when the death rate drops below the birth rate and we start to rebuild humanity. It's not even at that point in time. A time when we've lost over 98% of those under the age of 16 when we face a society-ending event, and 99% of those over the age of 60 when we face a society-ending event, where we've lost the entire generation that we want to rebuild society for, and we've lost the entire generation that can help us with their knowledge and their expertise and their experience rebuild that society. It's not even at that point that I want to survive. See, my goal, the reason I prep is so that 100 years from now, little Johnny and little Susie, my great-great-grandchildren, are sitting in a school named after me, reading about me in the history books as being a founding father of their society. Tell me, that's not narcissistic and egotistical. Right? How am I going to be a founding father in a society if there's no society? How can we have a society if there's nobody following me? How can anybody follow me if I kill them all? You have to understand now that the reason why you prep is not your own survival, it's the survival of your family. How much time do I have? Outstanding. I was a horrible husband the first 8 years my wife and I were married. Horrible. If I was a woman, I'd divorce myself at that point. It's that bad. And my wife stuck with me. And the next 7 years were pretty good. And in April of 2003, April of 2005, my wife says to me one day, she says, 15 years of marriage, she says, "I want to divorce you." Yep. My wife says to me, "Everything that you've built, this family, these dogs, the cars, the house, I had to walk away without my dogs." Right? And she was right. I loved her as much as I possibly could love anybody, and it just wasn't enough. It wasn't what she deserved. So I had to do some soul searching. I had to become the man that she needed me to be. See, guys, men live their lives dictated by the feelings in their wives' hearts. Think about that for a moment. Well, I don't let my wife's feelings run my life as I'm headed to this crappy job I don't like, so I can pay for the bills that we have so she doesn't leave me. I'm not going to see this movie that I don't want to see because she wants to see it. I'm my own man. Bull, 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 bull. Bull! Your life is dictated by your wife's heart. When you recognize that if you are cold and calloused and you turn those people away, your wife is not going to see you as a strong man looking out for her family. She's going to see you as a cold, heartless individual that turned his back on his fellow man. I had to come to the realization one day that I needed to become the wife my wife needed me to be. For purely selfish reasons, to get everything back. Right? I had to become completely unselfish, change my entire life to become what she needed me to be. And I haven't regretted it for a moment since. Not one moment. I'm sorry, ladies. She is the absolute best woman walking the face of the earth today, period, in a conversation. The point of that is this. I recognize purely selfish reasons to get what I want. I had to become completely unselfish and do what somebody else needed. To get what I want, which is to be remembered in the history books, I have to become completely unselfish. I have to recognize that I have a responsibility to look out for my fellow man. I have a responsibility to prepare for those people who are too ignorant and foolish to prepare for themselves now, because when they come to me, if I turn them away, I'm less than a man. And if I do help them and I haven't prepared to help them, then I'm signing my children's death certificates. You see what I mean? I recognize that the only way for me to achieve my goal, being a founding father in a future society, is to become completely unselfish and have that society to begin with. Somebody has to step up. Somebody has to take control. Somebody has to take charge. I have a problem with authority, so that person has to be me. You have to understand, guys, we are facing the absolute worst time that mankind has seen in 3,647 years. But that's not the worst. Because just a few months later, we will see the worst time that mankind has seen since Grandpa Noah got on a boat for 30 days without Gilligan, Barry Ann, and the skipper. We are facing catastrophic, cyclic, in time, extinction level events. And that stuff that you have in your basement isn't going to help you. And that stuff that you have or your neighbor has in their garage isn't going to help you. And that Humvee you bought for $7,500 from auction.gov isn't going to help you. What's going to help you? Stand up for me for a second. What's going to help you is when these people realize, stand up for me, that they have a moral obligation to help these two people and bring them in. Stand up for me, stand up for me, stand up for me, stand up for me, stand up for me. And this dude taking control realizes that he doesn't have to go man the gate, that he's got these two guys for security. He realizes he doesn't have to chop all the wood to build the fire to boil the water, because this young man's got a strong back and can handle that for him. He realizes he doesn't have to worry about cooking all the food. He's got folks that can help him cook. You're not going to survive on your own, people. It takes a group of individuals to survive. Thank you, sit down. The whole reason I started my group is because I don't like to chop wood. True story. I chopped wood. My wife wanted a wood-burning stove. Oh, okay. I bought a wood-burning stove. We paid $1,800. We had it installed because she wasn't going to let me, even though I knew how to do it, but she wasn't going to let me anyhow. And we had a tree fall, and I went through a chainsaw, and I cut all the branches off, and oh, it was manly. And then I cut it into pieces, and then I rolled them into a stack, and I went inside, sat down on the couch, and said, bring me 2 paint pills, please. And then 3 days later, when I could walk upright again, I went out there and I thought, well, I'm manly enough. I'll just go ahead and split all this wood and stack it. 2 hours later, I went back inside, I sat down on the couch and said, can you bring me 2 paint pills and Bacardi and Coke, please? This is a bad one. So the next weekend, I told my wife we're going to go buy a log splitter. And she says, before we buy one, can we rent one? And I said, why would we rent one? We need one. Let's go buy one. She says, can we rent one? And I said, sure. And I rented it, I took it home, and I started splitting wood, and I realized 2 hours later, while I'm sitting on the couch taking 2 paint pills, drinking Bacardi and Coke, that splitting wood with a log splitter is just as hard as splitting it by hand. It's just as much work. So I looked at my wife and I said, we need to get rid of that wood-burning stove. She says, why? And I said, because we ain't going to have any wood. She says, surely somebody will come along that needs food, water, fire, shelter, first aid, and hygiene, and we can open our doors to them and then cut the wood. And I went, you're here.